Story 1. This one makes my heart race every time. A pickup truck flees from the pyroclastic flows spewing from the Mount Pinatubo volcano in the Philippines. Story 2. I'm sure there are better ones, but this one has always had a soft spot for me. Shows a surgeon who performed a heart surgery which lasted 23 hours. The patient was borderline impossible to save. From the article, here we see Dr. Zbigniew Religa keeping watch on the vital signs of a patient after a 23-hour heart surgery he conducted. In the lower right corner, you can see one of his colleagues who helped him with the surgery fallen asleep. Dr. Religa was a pioneer of heart transplantation in Poland, and even though the surgery was considered borderline impossible at the time, he took the chance, and the operation was entirely successful. Today, even though Dr. Religa's heart has stopped beating, the one of his patient is still running. Story 3. Lots of beautiful and haunting stuff in here. How about a more recent, obscure one? A girl watching her grandfather cry at a Veterans Day celebration. This photo really jumped out at me the first time I saw it. The look on her face says it all. She just learned that the world is a whole lot bigger than she thought it was. Her eyes are full of sorrow, and she looks like she's brimming with questions. Not sure if the original poster in that link took it or not, but it's very nice. Story 4. Daredevils play tennis in sky. Looks so unbelievable that it seems photoshopped, but it isn't, which makes it more impressive. Story 5. Malcolm X peeks out his window with a rifle amidst death threats. This is the first one that came to mind for me. Story 6. I don't know if this was posted, but the story is so heartbreaking. Story 7. When I want to see incredible photos, I like going to the World Press Photo website. It's a collection of the photo of the year by World Press Photo and has some absolutely incredible images. Story 8. This man fulfilling his promise to wear a green dress to his friend's funeral. Story 9. I want to add, the elephant's foot. It is a photo of a melted nuclear core after the Chernobyl disaster. It chills me to see that such a simple-looking object is actually one of the most dangerous things in the world. After just 30 seconds of exposure, dizziness and fatigue will find you a week later. 2 minutes of exposure and the body cells will soon begin to hemorrhage. For minutes, vomiting, diarrhea, and fever. At 300 seconds, you have 2 days to live. Every time I see the picture, it's like I can feel the radiation and heaviness in the air. It's crazy we have a photograph of this. The photograph looks grainy not because the photography technology at the time in the Soviet Union was behind. It is because the radiation affects the film. Story 10. Surprised to not already see a harvest of death listed here. One of the first Civil War photos taken, one of the first war photos ever taken, and the first widely circulated one. This photo was the first time most people with the privilege of not being on the battlefield got a glimpse of what it was like. Story 11. Alright, look, I'm late to the party, but this is hands down the best photo ever taken. It's a picture by the lesser-known Apollo 11 astronaut Michael Collins. The picture contains the moon, the landing module with Armstrong and Aldrin, and the Earth. This is the best photo ever taken because it contains every single human that has ever existed. Dead or alive, every single member of our species and its entire history is in this picture, except for Michael Collins. Story 12. Franz Lanting's Ghost Trees has to be the wildest photo I have seen. I have had it ingrained in my head since the first time I saw it. It looks like a painting. This is also a really good video of Franz explaining the process and showing the pictures before and after this moment. Timing really is everything. Story 13. Just from skimming the first few photos in this thread, I've noticed a lot of sad photos vying for the greatest, so I thought I'd throw this one in. Easy Company, band of brothers, having a well-earned rest after capturing the Eagle's Nest, Hitler's private residence. Story 14. Australian soldier being beheaded by a Japanese soldier. Photo was found by an American soldier on a dead Japanese soldier. Story 15. General Nguyen shooting a Viet Cong prisoner, not only for its shocking portrayal of the harshness of war, but also for teaching us a lesson in learning the context behind the photo. The prisoner was caught cutting the throats of a South Vietnamese officer and his family, who were close friends of General Nguyen, and the general shot him in vengeance. Eddie Adams, the photographer, even said photos are only half-truths, and that they don't always explain the events that led to the moment. Adams would regret taking the Pulitzer Prize-winning photo, especially after the general received hate messages from those incensed at the photo's content. Story 16. That would be a bee urinating. Thank you for the 2 silvers. For those who are not fans of IFL science, here is an old Reddit post. Story 17. This photo is one of the only known photos in existence that shows the activities inside Auschwitz surrounding the mass execution of its prisoners. Photography in the camp was generally forbidden even by the Schutzstaffel, but this was taken in secret by the Special Unit, a group of around 1,000 prisoners inside the camp who were selected by the Schutzstaffel to do all the dirty work, including disposing of and burning the bodies as they are in this photo. The Special Unit smuggled in a camera and took the picture from the doorway of a nearby gas chamber. They then managed to smuggle the film out of the camp in a tube of toothpaste. For me, it is one of the most horrifying photos in existence and just shows what humans are capable of at their worst. Story 18. This is so hard, bordering on impossible, to answer because it's hard to compare different genres of photography, from landscape to animal to street photography. It's like asking which is your favorite movie. Sure, some can answer that, but a better question would be to ask concerning a specific category. Having said that, this is a recent favorite of mine. Palestinian father bathing his daughter and niece in their destroyed home. Story 19. This photo of Jackie Kennedy climbing the back of the limousine after John F. Kennedy was assassinated. This one has always been really incredible to me because it's a pretty perfect snapshot of an insanely significant moment in history. Story 20. I saved this one a while back on Reddit just because of the contrast to this guy's look compared to the actions around him. Story 21. Moments Before Happiness, 1950s Romania. Moment Before Happiness, 1955. Edit. My first gold. Thank you, kind stranger. Story 22. When Belgian King Leopold II ruled the Congo, he killed 10 million people and committed atrocities, such as cutting off their hands, feet, and genitals. A father looks at the hand and foot of his 5-year-old daughter, punished for failing to meet her rubber quota. Story 23. Probably not the greatest, but I'd like to share Fernando Aiuti's kiss. Fernando Aiuti was an Italian immunologist who passed away just a few days ago. This picture of him is extremely important because he's kissing a woman affected by human immunodeficiency virus. He did this in 1991 in response to an article falsely claiming human immunodeficiency virus could be transmitted by kissing, at a time when popular knowledge about human immunodeficiency virus and acquired immunodeficiency syndrome was extremely vague. Story 24. Probably already somewhere in here, but an East German soldier defected to the West by jumping over the Berlin Wall when it was only barbed wire. This happened on the 3rd day of its construction, and the picture became a symbol for the Cold War. The whole story can be found on Wikipedia under Konrad Schumann. Story 25. This is the single highest resolution picture that has ever been captured. Looked at this for hours, just searching for something new to discover. Edit. Love looking at the hilarious things you all found. Hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Thanks for that. Story 26. The Death of an Iraqi Soldier, Highway of Death, 1991. By Ken Jurek. If I don't photograph this, people like my mom will think war is what they see on TV. Story 27. I still think this photo of a plane crash happening is one of the best I have seen. Story 28. Saturn. The Earth is visible too. The bright spot on the left, that's us. This is the modern equivalent of the pale blue dot. Story 29. Virunga Ranger with Gorilla. This picture contains a lot of powerful elements. The backstory is so sad. For those who are interested, check out Virunga on Netflix. Edit. So many great pictures and stories in this thread I never heard of. Thank you for all these submissions. Story 30. This photo shows an empty bed and a chair beside it. On the bed is a pillow with some dark stains. It is the bed where Lincoln died across the street from Ford's Theater. The photo was taken right after the president's body was removed. The pillow is stained red with the blood that seeped out of his head wound all night long. It is just soaked. Story 31. The photo of Bruce McCandless floating untethered in space. Story 32. People are posting a lot of National Aeronautics and Space Administration's greatest photos here. My personal favorite is Earthrise. It just brings up a deep emotion of togetherness. We are all on this rock together, and we should all try to get along. Story 33. A lot of the best ones have already been linked here, so I want to share one of my favorites. This photo of a priest during the 2014 Ukrainian Revolution. The contrast between the worn riot shield in one of his hands and the cross in the other, along with his religious garb against his respirator, is something I found incredibly powerful. A friend of mine likened him to a real-life paladin. There's something so battle-hardened about the look in his eyes. Story 34. Photo 51. The first photo showing the structure of DNA. Image taken by Rosalind Franklin in 1952. Story 35. Hannah Stille, the earliest born person ever photographed, was 10 years old when Mozart was born. She lived through the French Revolution and the creation of the United States. Just think about it. Story 36. The photo of the child that was trapped under the debris of her house for 3 days before dying has to be up there. Story 37. Probably the happy Chinese man eating rice from the 1900s. He just looks so happy. Story 38. For me, it's this picture of a nuclear blast a fraction of a second after it detonated by Harold Eugene Edgerton. Edit. Got time frame wrong. Story 39. It's two photographs, but together they tell a story. Here is Joseph Goebbels at the 1933 League of Nations. Here he is a few minutes later, after finding out the photographer was Jewish. The photographer was Alfred Eisenstadt, who also took the famous Victory over Japan Day in Times Square picture. He lived until 1995 and was still working in his 90s. Story 40. The Priest and the Dying Soldier by Hector Rondon Levera. Story 41. I have a soft spot for this picture of an American Civil War veteran posing with a military jet. It really shows the incredible progress made in the span of a lifetime. How one man could go from a battlefield on which muskets and cannon won the day to a world of rockets, missiles, and supersonic aircraft. And there he is touching a jet. Story 42. Big J. McNeely, Los Angeles Olympic Auditorium, 1951 by Bob Willoughby. Edit. Thanks for the silver. More info. It doesn't seem that the name of the song was documented while this photo was taken. But his audience reacted this way commonly during his performances. In his Los Angeles Times obituary, they quote a 1952 review of his concert, that he turned the event into a veritable Hepcat jive orgy when he came off the stage into the audience. In 2009, John Willoughby, the photographer, said of McNeely, Big J stood in the middle of what normally would be the fight ring, playing his heart out, and the crowd was exploding around him. He created some sort of resonance with the audience. In some weird way, he seemed to be playing them. Story 43. This picture of Emmett Till's mother shows Emmett, who was murdered at 14 and gruesomely mauled just for speaking to a white woman. His mother decided to have an open casket funeral so everyone could see what had happened. His death in 1955 was one of the major sparks of the civil rights movement. Story 44. A mother and father having to sell their butchered children during 1920s Russia. First time a photograph shook me. Story 45. I couldn't name a single one, but here's a phenomenal photograph that I'm not sure if it has been mentioned yet. Story 46. Not sure if it has been shared already, but this aerial picture of Muhammad Ali and Cleveland Williams in 1966 is a beautiful shot. Story 47. This photograph of presumably the last Atlas lion. Story 48. Edwin Hubble's Hubble 335 was a photograph of the Great Nebula in Andromeda that proved the Milky Way was not alone in the universe. Overnight, we went from thinking there was one galaxy to knowing there were many more. Today, the best estimate is around 1 trillion galaxies. As a symbolic gesture, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration took some of Hubble's original copies of the image aboard the space shuttle as it carried the Hubble Space Telescope to orbit. Here is some more information about the image and its significance. Story 49. This photo isn't haunting or heartbreaking. It simply makes me smile and fills my heart with happiness every time I see it. Story 50. I am an absolute sucker for photos of people forgetting the world and just enjoying the moment. It may not be the single greatest photograph in history, but it brings me an incredible amount of happiness to look at it. It's just a beautiful snapshot of humans being humans. Story 51. I think this photo series of a rock climber in the 2017 total solar eclipse is pretty awesome. Can you imagine the amount of planning that went into this shot? Story 52. Sarajevo's Romeo and Juliet always get to me. Story 53. Monkey selfie. Also, the story after the picture was taken is interesting. Story 54. I don't know if someone has posted this already, but the picture that changed the face of AIDS is the real deal. Story 55. This one has messed me up for a very long time. Einsatzgruppen soldiers executing Jews in a field in Ukraine, 1942. Story 56. 9,000 bodies etched into the sand in Normandy to remember the lives lost on D-Day. The art installation is called The Fallen, created by sand in your eye. Story 57. NASA's new ultra-high-resolution photo of this galaxy. Story 58. The last photograph of the RMS Titanic, taken just after she departed Queenstown. Definitely not the greatest photo, especially of the RMS Titanic, but very haunting nonetheless. Story 59. I'm not sure I'd say it's the greatest, but still, let's balance the mood in here with a little levity. This is just downright cute. Story 60. The vulture and the little girl gets me every time. If you ever get a chance to read the story behind this photograph, you should. Heartbreaking. Story 61. I had to look up where it was taken, but this picture is from the 5th Solvay conference. Story 62. Pillars of Creation. Edit. User CLXIX painted an awesome one. Story 63. Prepare to meet thy God. A bomb disposal expert walks to defuse a potential explosive device in Northern Ireland, 1970.